Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Portsmouth City Council Cabinet. I'm Councillor Steve Pitt. I'm the leader of the City Council, and I will be chairing this meeting. But a housekeeping safety information before we start. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble by Queen Victoria's statue in Guildhall Square. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. Everyone speaking via a microphone will be recorded and broadcast on the website, including anyone making deputation. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. Please can everyone use the microphones, and please remember to turn them off when you have finished. We have all read the reports. Officers will highlight any developments that have occurred since publication or any other key points they believe we should be noting. We'll go first to introductions, starting on my left.
Peter Bowles, City Solicitor.
Natalie Brommer, Pearl, Chief Executive.
Anna Martin, Democratic Services.
Richard Webb, Deputy Director of Finance.
Dave Ashmore, one of the councillors. I help look after environmental services.
Councillor Dorrington, Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education.
Chris Atwell, Cabinet Member for Central Services.
Kimberly Barrett, Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Green in the City.
Matthew Willington, Cabinet Member for Community Wellbeing, Health and Care.
So I'm Councillor Lee Hunt. I don't know where Kathy came from. I really don't know. It's not a secret, honestly. It's all out there. Don't have to worry about it. Name and Shame can print that one if they want. I'm Councillor Lee Hunt, and I am the Cabinet Member for Community Safety, Parks and Open Spaces. Thank you.
Peter Candlish, Cabinet Member for Transport.
Hugh Mason, Cabinet Member for Planning Policy and City Development.
James Hill, Director of Housing, Neighbourhood and Building Services.
Dave Emmett, Head of Waste Management.
I'm Colette Hill, Assistant Director of Neighbourhoods.
Tom Southall, Assistant Director of Economy, Transport and Planning.
James Harris, Senior Local Democracy Officer.
Claire Looney, Commissioning and Partnership Manager.
Claire Watkins, Business Manager, Culture and Leisure.
Dave Percival, Library and Archive Service Manager.
Carolina Hopper, Corporate Projects Manager.
Bethan Clements, Transport Delivery Manager.
Steve Curtis, Funding Manager, accompanied by Lisa Clark, Funding Officer.
Well covered.
Councillor Brian Madgwick, Chair of Tax.
Councillor Russell Simpson, Chair for EDCL Scrutiny Panel, but also reading a deputation as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome everyone, especially Kathy. Nice to see you.
You watch it. I'll see you later.
So we've got, there's a promise. We've got two councillors with us today who are doing, Brian, are you doing a deputation or are you just here? You're just here. Russell, I'm going to give you the option. You can either do your deputations now so that you don't have to remain for the whole meeting, or you can do them before the relevant item. It's entirely your choice. I'm giving you the option of to stay or go.
I'll do it before the relevant. So
you sure? Okay, that's fine. Just wanted to give you the option. So we have apologies today from Councillor Darren Sanders, Cabinet Member for Housing and Preventing Homelessness, who is at a council conference elsewhere in the country. We have apologies from Am Hamilton, the Operations Performance Manager from ETP, in reference to item 9, and we've got an apology from Catherine Ramsey, the Business Development Projects Manager, in relation to item 13, that item being covered by Claire Looney instead. Members, have we got any declarations of interest? Kimberly?
I do. I have a declaration of interest. I have family members and my child volunteers at the library, and I have a family member that works for the library service.
Thank you. Personal non-prejudicial interest, Peter. Noted. Anyone else? No. No. All good then. Minutes of the previous meeting from the 29th of April. Members have seen the minutes, read the minutes, looked at the minutes, turned them into a paper aeroplane. Are you happy with the minutes? Everybody's happy? Good. Okay, thank you. Appointments to outside organisations and member champions. James, I'm going to ask you to introduce the report, draw our attention to one particular post that I mentioned to you earlier on, and I'll add some comments to that. And then please tell us the contested positions only. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. The report before Cabinet is an annual item to confirm appointments to outside organisations. Cabinet is also invited to consider appointing member champions. The table at Appendix 1 details the appointments to be agreed. For transparency, existing company director appointments are listed in a further table for information only. As an update to the published report, Councillor Smythe is happy to be appointed to the Solent Sea Rescue Organisation. The current vacancy or no nominations received for the Hampshire and Isle of Wight NHS Foundation Trust Council of Governors, I understand from a discussion earlier, will be not appointing to that pending further information from the NHS Foundation Trust as to the remit of the role and the requirements of that position. The contested seats are the Aspects Visual Arts Trust. We have nominations from Councillor Atwell and Councillor Vallely. Buckland Community Association, they have requested 2 ward members. We have 4 appointments, namely Councillor Fazakerley, Councillor Hunt, Councillor Adeniran and Councillor Ghosh, noting that Councillor Ghosh had been appointed as an observer last year. The LGA Coastal Issues Special Interest Group, 1 appointment, although they would welcome a deputy. They have specified that the relevant portfolio holder would be beneficial. Councillor Mason and Councillor Smythe have been nominated. The Parking and Traffic Regulations outside London, 1 appointment and 1 deputy is requested. We have 2 nominations, namely Councillor Candlish, Councillor Heaney. And finally, the Southern Regional Flood and Coastal Committee, 1 appointment and 1 deputy. Again, we have 2 nominations, Councillor Mason and Councillor Smythe. Thank you.
Thank you, James. A bit more info on that. The one that we had a nomination from for Councillor Smythe, which I think it's fair to say that considerable effort has gone into making contact with said organisation, and the phone is either ringing out or they're not returning emails. However, at least 1 local authority in Hampshire has been successful in making an appointment to it, so there must be a secret route in. So what we'll do is now investigate that route in. It just doesn't seem to me, members, to be appropriate to be appointing somebody to something when we don't actually know exactly what it is we're appointing them to in terms of the level of commitment required, the frequency of meetings, what the role will be. And it's fine that Judith's put a name forward, but I don't feel comfortable appointing somebody when I don't know what it is that I'm asking them to do. So I'm going to suggest that before we take the rest of these, we actually defer that appointment to the next meeting in the hope that in the meantime we can get some traction. And James, it might be that Natalie as Chief Executive is able to potentially help with establishing contact by going higher up the chain so we can find out exactly what it is that we're doing, which will be helpful because we only know about this due to Councillor Winnington, who's got his hand up to speak and might be able to shed a tiny grain more light on it.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's just worth saying to start with that this is a new appointment for the council because the new trust only came into being last October, and because it's a foundation trust, and it's taking over that status from the old Southern Health, the Southern Health Trust, which didn't cover Portsmouth at all. So that's why, unlike our old relationship with Solent, which wasn't a foundation trust, we didn't have a nominee on there. So that's why this nomination has come up. And indeed, I only found out about it by accident because I happened to be looking I was interested to see who was on the Board of Governors of the new trust, and I found out that there was a vacancy shown for the City Council, which we knew nothing about. We'd never been told because it hadn't been something we'd had involvement with before. So, and as I say, I can vouch for the fact that James has been trying very hard to try and get information about it, and it's really disappointing that we haven't been able to. I have got Health and Wellbeing Board tomorrow, and the Integrated Care Partnership Assembly next week. So I think between myself and the Chief Executive, we can find some pathways to try and get some information so we can do this properly. But I do agree. I think that we need to do this in a way that makes sense, and therefore we actually know people who have an interest in doing it know what they're actually signing up to, and B, that we as an appointing body, i.e. the City Council and the Cabinet that has that responsibility, actually know what we're appointing someone to, because I think that's really important. It is an important role, but I completely agree and back up the decision to defer it until we have more proper information. And I think certainly the request that we're properly informed of this in the future.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, so members, are we content with that? Any dissent? So we'll defer that particular appointment. We'll now go through the contested positions. We have 2 nominations for Aspects Visual Arts Trust. Our current appointee on there is Councillor Chris Atwell. We've got a note of interest from Councillor Mary Vallely. Are we happy that Chris should continue on there? It's an observer role only, it's not a voting member of the board. Okay. Buckland Community Association, they specifically asked for 2 ward councillors, and we have 2 ward councillors amongst the 4 nominees, so that would be Councillor Fazakerley and Councillor Hunt. However, I don't think we'd have any objection to Councillor Raj Ghosh being able to continue to attend as an observer if he wished to.
Yeah, co-terminus councillors, Councillor Idnarin, she comes regularly, so it's not a problem at all. I'm sure the committee won't mind me saying that. We've been going there for years now, so they always welcome interest.
Good, okay. So 2 official appointees, but the other 2 councillors should be welcome. So that's that one dealt with. The next one was LGA Coastal Issues Special Interest Group. We have 2 nominations. They've said that they'd welcome a deputy, so I don't think that I have any concerns about asking Councillor Mason to continue with his 20 years plus experience in coastal matters and flood defences and being instrumental in bringing in literally hundreds of millions of pounds into Portsmouth. But if he's got no objections to Councillor Smythe being a deputy for that role. Good, Hughes happy, so that is what we will do, James, if that's okay. We have the extraordinary situation where 2 people have nominated themselves for patrol, which is the parking and traffic regulations outside London, which was offered to me once and I politely declined. Councillor Candlish as cabinet members should be the obvious person, but if they are happy to have a deputy, then we have no objection to that being Councillor Heaney, who's put his name forward. And the last one, I think I'm right in saying, is the Southern Regional Flood and Coastal Committee. For the reasons already stated in Councillor Mason's particular expertise in this area, our colleagues, are we happy that that appointment should be Councillor Mason? And no other suggested changes since the papers were published. We're happy to take the rest on block. Yes, so approved. James?
Sorry, just for clarity, the Southern Regional Flood and Coastal Committee would also welcome a deputy if Cabinet was minded to so appoint.
In that case, I think we're also happy that that could be Councillor Smythe. Yes, so no dissent on any of them as suggested. Good. Also for noting, we've got the existing company director appointments that are in here purely for information. Any questions or concerns about those? No. In which case, you'll please note the Part 4E protocols and the notes for code of conduct when representing on outside bodies, which are also attached in the papers. Any questions or comments arising from those? No. Also, general responsibilities of anyone acting as a company director under any situation? No. Good. Then we have the member champions protocol in there. James, remind me which page the members champions are actually on. This is a very, very long report. Anybody remind me which page they're on? If they're on any page. I seem to remember they were. I read this, can't find them now. They're not on there. They were, James, weren't they? Have they dropped off by accident? I mean, I think I can remember them. I'm nominated as Armed Forces Champion on the basis I'm Leader of the Council, and it has to be a Cabinet appointee anyway. We have the existing Women and Girls Champion, which is Councillor Charlotte Gerarda, and I don't believe there was another nomination anyway, and the administration is very happy for her to continue in that role. There was the LGBTQIA plus champion, which we'd already said last year we thought was more suitable to be subsumed into the cabinet role, and we weren't going to take that member champion post forward. And I think that's it. Yes?
Just in terms of deputy armed forces champions, I believe there were 2 to be put forward.
They were well reminded. So, colleagues, last year we invited Councillor Tom Coles to be the Deputy Armed Forces Champion. Tom has confirmed he's happy to continue to do that. As an ex-member of the Armed Forces, that's incredibly welcome and his experience is valued. This year I've also had an approach from Alderman and Freeman of the City, former Councillor Frank Jonas, who, as you will know from the number of events that we all attend during the year, is a very regular attendee, particularly at those events connected to the armed forces, well liked and respected by that community. And he's asked me if we would consider the post of honorary Deputy Armed Forces Champion for him. I've discussed that with Councillor Coles and also with you, and I can confirm at this meeting that we are very happy to accept that and to confirm Frank in that position. And I know that Caroline, who's with us today, is already seeking to reach out to him to share with him the diary of events through the year, and his ongoing commitment to the Council's activities with the Armed Forces community is extremely welcome. Everybody happy with that? Good. James, anything else that I've overlooked on that item? Has there a hand gone up somewhere? Anna? No, it don't matter, we've done it now, but thank you for your help. That's how long it took to find it. Okay, so that is item 4, and I believe we've now dealt with that in its entirety, and thank you all, and particularly for those members who have put themselves forward for different positions from different groups. So item 5 on today's agenda is the Modern Slavery and Human Trafficking Statement, and I'm going to hand over to Caroline Hopper to present the item.
Good afternoon. I'm presenting this for Natasha Edmonds, Director of Corporate Services, who is our strategic lead for modern slavery. This is an annual statutory requirement, so you'll note that it looks quite similar, and that's because we have specific information that we need to share and publish on an annual basis. It does, however, provide an opportunity to highlight some of the work that we're doing in this to address this really important issue. So notably this year we've introduced a new learning management system. This went live in January 2025, and to date nearly or just over 1,700 members of staff have registered or completed online training that would give them some form of awareness of modern slavery, so either directly the modern slavery unit or a safeguarding unit which includes a component of modern slavery, which is fantastic. We've seen in the last year referrals to the National Referral Mechanism nearly double from Portsmouth, rising to 32 from 16 in 2023, with the highest number involving individuals under 18. This reflects for us an upward trend in numbers, but it doesn't necessarily mean an upward trend in cases. What we believe it represents is improved awareness and identification of modern slavery following a concerted effort in the last year to improve awareness through a range of training opportunities and communication campaigns. However, it remains a really underreported issue, so it's very difficult to tell either way. I would say that last year was the highest number of referrals into the National Referral Mechanism across the UK ever. So, you know, we're either getting better at spotting it or potentially on the increase. The Procurement Act 2023 came into effect in October 2024, and for our year ahead, this is further going to strengthen our modern slavery response, because there's a number of areas in that, including about management of risk and about disqualifying suppliers, which really attune with what we want to achieve through our modern slavery response. Our work to address modern slavery is a combination of work through various different partnerships and work streams. It's incorporated into our Violence Against Women and Girls strategy, our City Vision, social values strategy, and partnerships such as the work that we do with the Council City of Sanctuary and the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Modern Slavery Partnership. So I submit it to you for approval.
Caroline, thank you very much, and thank you to you and the others in the team who've put input into this. As Caroline said at the beginning of her presentation, it is a statutory report and it needs to come here annually. It is important. It's an update. We're not starting this from the beginning. It's an update and it's a piece of work that we build on year. Councillor Hunt.
Am I on? Doesn't show green, shows red. Anyway, so I want to thank Caroline, and she's a great officer. She really is. And all the other officers that feed into these reports, and including all the volunteers out there that also do that, and particularly through the work of the Council of Sanctuary, a really important aspect of our city's life. It has many elements to it, and what is, I want to sort of paraphrase to a certain extent what Caroline has said. The truth is, we don't really know how much modern slavery is out there. Sometimes I feel that we are just touching at the surface of it. But Caroline is completely correct that we are getting better at spotting it. And this is because we work in this council for decades now in partnership with lots of other groups and volunteers and agencies, national agencies and local agencies, in particular the police. And so it's very important that we see that these partner agencies bring forward this social value strategy, and engagement with the voluntary sector is really, really important. So this all feeds in to the reporting that Caroline covers and brings back to us from time to time. It is a really important aspect of what the city's life, as I say. I fear local government reform. And I do wonder what will happen when the funding, it is a statutory report, but I wonder what will happen when all these other voluntary groups come under pressure from the lack of money to do the work they do nowadays, which sees us being more and more successful. So I have thanked Caroline, I've thanked all the people who support her in her work, and as I say, I've strongly thanked all the volunteers who do so much brilliant work across Portsmouth. And modern slavery is a scourge on our city's life and all cities and towns across the UK. So the government has got to continue to fund it no matter what happens, because it's a very, very miserable affair. Well, not always a miserable affair, I suppose, because I recall a story when we were all sat in the Liberal Democrat office and the police went into the premises next door, and suddenly there was a terrific racket out of the back yard, and a half-naked man shot out over the wall and ran off down the street. I think he was just trying to get away from what was happening. Was the police were checking up on people in the premises, not our premises, but a nearby premises, and he thought he should better make his escape. So the police are doing a very good job. We're backing them up, and all the work that Caroline does brings that to this place so that we understand it better. But I'm not sure everybody gets it in the way they should.
Councillor Mason.
Excuse me interrupting, Chair. I'm going to have to go. I'm sorry about this.
Understood, Brian. We can see you're not very well at all, but thank you for attending today, and hope you get
Apologies
better soon.
to everyone.
Thank you. Right, Hugh.
I know it's very difficult to ascertain the size of the problem. We can only deal with the referrals. But do you have any indication of how this city compares with comparable places? Are we in a bad place compared to others, or are we a reasonably good position?
I think the main issue is that the way that the referral data is presented to us makes it very, very difficult to compare ourselves to others. We can only know the referrals that directly come from our council, for example. That's why you'll see the majority are children, because there is if you're a child found, then you're assumed consent into that pathway by the fact that you're under 18. If you're an adult found, then you have to consent to a referral, which is why our numbers are so low for adults, and there'll be a number of reasons why there may not be consent. Also, there are a number of partner organisations that work in our city and surrounding that will also potentially be working with these people and may not pick our numbers up. So it's a tricky one to unpick, and actually there's a piece of national consideration going on at the moment through the Home Office. We work together with other local authorities through the Local Government Association to try and build a picture of what's going on with modern slavery, and being able to really get to grips with the data, and the referral data is one of the things on our to-do list at the moment.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? No? Okay, in which case we have recommendations that the Cabinet approves the modern slavery and human trafficking statement for the signature by myself and publication on the Council's website, and also approves that full Council be asked to note the decision on the Cabinet to approve and publish the statement of the Council's website. Are we happy with those recommendations? We are. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you again, Caroline, for presenting on that item today. We now move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is the EDCL scrutiny review. And for the benefit of the general public who probably think, who the hell are EDCL, is Economic Development, Culture and Leisure Scrutiny Review, which was entitled An Exploration of Cultural Accessibility and Engagement with Deprived Communities, and it's the response report. Councillor Simpson, would you like to do your deputation on this item now?
Thank you, Chair. You've actually taken a quarter of my my deputation just from saying what it is. So yeah, thank you, Chair and Cabinet members. Today you'll be debating about 2 submissions from the Economic Development, Culture and Leisure Scrutiny Panel. We specifically chose an exploration of cultural accessibility and engagement with deprived communities because we, the panel, felt that with the data provided from the government, most deprived areas, access to culture and data from our summer reading challenge, it justified an in-depth review so we could suggest recommendations to the Cabinet member to improve accessibility. We asked many local creative groups who work at a grassroots level their suggestions, but also what works and what doesn't. We were particularly touched and saddened by Maria May's unplanned story about her mother's connection with Portsmouth's cultural offerings, in this case our free museums, and she said, "I don't feel like I'm worth going into museums." The panel fell silent, and we wondered how many others have that mindset, how many generations have missed out on our free cultural offerings. We also received some very good feedback from schools, which we can hope can be put to good use. We would like to thank again the panel and the witnesses who attended in their free time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members have got the report before us. Claire will now, is going to be you, Claire, is it? Claire and Dave are with us and will now add some officer comments.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, as Councillor Simpson alluded, there was a wide range of witnesses available for this topic that we engaged with together with the panel, and the recommendations crossed a wide range of areas and teams. Under the libraries and the Summer Reading Challenge, we've set out the extensive engagement measures the library service undertakes throughout the year. Under museums, we've set out in the report the support provided by the service to enable school children, irrespective of background, to access the wide range of attractions on offer. We've also included some examples of pop-up cultural opportunities, such as the school workshops with Simon Armitage, the Poet Laureate. And we haven't included in this because it's subsequent to the report, but there's also been an event at the New Theatre Royal recently with the Poet Laureate, which was an open event for Year 10 students. And we've also set out the wide range of marketing routes we currently engage with, both with the marketing support from our corporate directorate and complementary schemes in transport and education. The services work consistently hard to engage with seldom heard audiences, and examples are included in the report but are not limited to the Summer Reading Challenge Plus, leisure card audiences for museum attractions, and the community co-production for the Ancient Sudan exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. David, does anyone add anything?
Just as a kind of universal service, we make real consideration to reaching people throughout the city, and it's reflected in the kind of geographical locations of our libraries across the city, where we are using every opportunity to promote engagement with libraries. So tomorrow morning we'll have the big Year 5 Book Award at the King's Theatre. There'll be schools from all over the city who may not engage outside of the school gates with libraries, but we'll be promoting the Summer Reading Challenge and participation in that as well. And we have begun engagement with Victory Primary School in Paulsgrove and Ark Ayrton School with the kind of Summer Reading Challenge Plus initiative that we do to encourage children to participate, targeted pupils to participate before the holidays.
Thank you, Dave. I mean, from my perspective, it does bother me that there are people out there who wouldn't think that our offer was for them, and it is difficult. I think with schools, this is something I've said in a number of different fora over the years. I find it frustrating sometimes that we have directly contacted the heads and education leads on different issues in the schools on behalf of local creatives, saying they've got some funding from the Arts Council to deliver some workshops. Would you like them to come in and do that? There's a great offer. And those workshops don't get taken up. And you might think, well, maybe they weren't offering what the schools needed. Workshops end up going to places in Havant and Fareham. So they are needed, and they are recognised by schools, but not necessarily our schools. And it's a bit of a quandary that I've found over the years in trying to get that engagement. And it's never really clear why that doesn't happen. But of course, if young people get into the habit of engaging with cultural activity, particularly museums and libraries, they are likely to retain that habit through their lives. So thank you for that. Drawing attention to that, Russell, and it is something that we need to keep chipping away at to get underneath the skin of it and find out what it is that is not attracting people to things being offered as packages into schools, which are free. And I recently visited a school in another local authority area, funnily enough, who invited me because all the people delivering stuff there were cultural and creative people from Portsmouth, and they wanted me to see what our creative community was delivering in their school, which isn't in Portsmouth. And if that's not ridiculous, I don't know what is. And it was a really impressive and inspiring morning. So I'm not criticising our schools. They have huge challenges, and their prioritisation under the current education system in this country, which I firmly believe is not fit for purpose, because it's too much target driven and not about quality of experience, and therefore people have to go out and concentrate on those exam figures, and I fundamentally don't believe that's the correct way to educate young people, but that needs national government change, and in the meantime our schools are caught by the system that they are trapped in, and for a number of different reasons they do find things challenging. However, we have had a massive success with the D-Day Story project and getting schools out that way, and it just goes to show that sometimes mobility can be a problem in the city, and getting coach provision there to get children from their schools directly to the activity that we want them to participate in makes a difference. So that's a useful piece of recent learning that we'll be taking forward, and I've already been tapped up by the Portsmouth Music Hub to see if we can help support with some transport next year during the Portsmouth 100 activities for a bunch of schools, and we of course will do that. And we do know that the Summer Reading Challenge Plus in particular, when we deliver that in a school where we often see low engagement at any other time, and do that targeted piece of work, can make an enormous difference to the number of completers that we get. But we also need to thank those schools who do make sure that they are regular participants and actually to some extent competitive in making sure that they get those completers, so that the end of summer event can be so successful as it always is. So it's a mixture of positives and challenges rather than negatives, but it's something that we do need to keep on our radar and continually finding way to engage particularly seldom heard communities in the cultural activity of this city, which I believe to be vibrant. Any other comments from Councillor Hunt?
Yeah, sure. Well, I sat in your cultural place for, I think it was about 10 years. I don't remember how long with Dave. It probably seemed longer.
It was about 6.
No, knock me down, won't you? Anyway, so yeah, so...
5?
Yeah, indeed. So this city does a lot that's very different. I remember when I first came into the chair, that, for example, I like examples. I like things you can touch and feel. Southsea Castle you had to pay to enter. If I remember rightly, it was £5 to go in, Claire, way back. Oh, it was. And so what we did when we came in is we innovated. So we put all those businesses into Southsea Castle, the wedding venue and the micro breweries and one or two other things. And I was there one day, it was a nice hot summer's day, and this little lad, he came running up to the entrance where you've got all the bridge, the small bridge, and he stopped suddenly at the arch. And he looked through, and his mother tried to pull him back because she thought she'd have to pay to get in. And no, so I told them that they could come in, that it was free to come in. And so he went up the stairs, and he saw Henry VIII. And he pointed at him, and he wanted to know all about it. So I told him. And he was only a little lad. And, you know, I have no idea. I have no idea what happened to him, obviously. But none of us have any idea what something like that triggers. The imagination, you know, does somebody go along to learn a bit more about history, about the castle, or become involved? We just don't know. But unless we do all these free things, these young people in our deprived communities, they are here, we don't deny that, will have less access to these sorts of things. So you've got the Portsmouth Book Awards. I mean, I'm telling you, the first time I went there, see all these baying kids, and they asked me to go on the stage and talk to them. I couldn't hardly stand. My legs were shaking like jelly with all these children screaming like they were. But it was so wonderful, so engaged with books, and we'd seen the run-up to it across the summer with the Summer Reading Challenge and kids engaging with books, which is really, really important. And the other thing that we do is that we keep all our libraries going. In fact, we invest in our libraries, unlike so many other places who shut them down, or even worse, put them into trusts. We must never be tempted to go into a trust, because once you get a trust, and if we have local government reform, they'll be looking around the wider council to see which libraries are not succeeding. And they'll shut them down, I think. So one of those that would go probably would be up at Paulsgrove. Most likely, I think, because the visitor numbers would be lower than perhaps other places. So this is why we have to fight local government reform so hard. But I'll finish on another nice note, which is all the other free stuff we do. I can't mention it all, but you've only got to look at the beach volleyball courts we put in nearly 10 years ago. They're free to use. And all the table tennis courts around the outside table tennis courts, which get mucked about in the wind. I know that because it's difficult to play on them with the wind up. And then the splash pools. So we built one in the south, and understanding that people in the north would expect one there, so we built one in the north. And the free BMX track, and then all they've got to pay for it. You see the water sports up on the moat, and free swimming for kids under 12 at Mountbatten Centre. And you know what? We're going to build another learner swimming pool. And I've seen Stephen Morgan on the internet today, meeting Katie Sexton, saying how important it is that children learn how to swim because Portsmouth is surrounded by water. Well, why the heck then did Labour fight tooth and nail our attempt to build the Bransbury Children's Learner Pool? It's quite extraordinary. But regardless, this council gets on with things. It works at delivering free things for children to do, as described by you, and to a certain extent in this report. So I think we do wonderfully well. But with I get very concerned about local government reform. Taking all the money away from the people in this city that we used to help and support these deprived communities, Leader.
Thank you, Lee. Hugh.
Just two things quickly. Firstly, I'd like to thank the scrutiny panel for the work that they've done on this. But secondly, to emphasise something which Councillor Hunt has passed over, which is a number of times in his... No, you passed it over and talked about something else.
Through the chair, please,
okay.
members.
Which is the large number of free events in this city. And it's not just the free events for children, it is free cultural events that anybody can attend. And this is so rare in this country these days. And I think it is one of the strengths of this city that we can provide so many free cultural events.
I think you're absolutely right, Hugh, and that, you know, when people are asking me what's at risk due to local government reorganisation, I think Lee's right. I've been highlighting in particular the events programme. I mean, we had a brilliant Armed Forces Day down on Southsea Common on Saturday. I was thrilled to go along and present the medals to the winners of the Junior Field Gun that's run by Future Fit, an organisation based out of Plymouth. Those young people had an absolutely amazing time. I got them all jumping up and down, throwing the trophy up in the air and cheering like they'd won the World Cup. They thought it was brilliant. And they had a great time with that. And they, you know, those young people are bonding as a team. That event's amazing because it mixes boys and girls and people with disabilities together in a way where they can compete as a team. And if that's not the right message to be sending, I don't know what is. We were nearly landed on by a paratrooper at one point who didn't quite hit the mark, but hey-ho, happens to everybody. But they did, most of them got in the arena. A brilliant turnout of service personnel, cadets, and veterans, all associated obviously with the Armed Forces community, which extends to about 37,000 people in our city, one way or another. So brilliant to see that. And actually delivered through sponsorship and partnership working on behalf of the people of this city with a very small underwrite from the council. But small underwrites disappearing mean why will other people put money in hand in their pocket if the council's not prepared to put its own hand in its own pocket? And so these things do become at risk. I think it's fair to say it's probably one of the largest. I'm pretty sure it's probably is the largest, but I'm going to say it's one of the largest Armed Forces Day events that takes place anywhere in the country, certainly in a public space and free. Similarly, events like the Kite Festival and Live at the Bandstand, and even down to our remembrance events on the scale that they require funding in order to deliver them, and they are massively valued by people in this city, and they are what are unfortunately currently known as discretionary spend services. And if all of our responsibilities in future get sucked into delivering statutory services, which are services we have no choice but to deliver, and there's no money left for anything else, because this Labour government keeps saying no new money under LGR, and we're supposed to just magic up a solution out of thin air, then the things we have a choice over will go. And it's a tragedy. So celebrating the stuff that is happening now and recognising that we can always do more, but expressing real concern about where we might be heading. Members, any other comments? In which case, I will thank David and Claire very much indeed. I am absolutely gutted that I'm missing the book award tomorrow because it's an amazing experience, and I will be fulfilling my responsibilities as a member of the Health and Wellbeing Board tomorrow, which is also very important. So my apologies for not being there. I'm sure you'll have a blast. So thank you for that, and thank you for the reporting back on this particular item, and to Councillor Simpson for his deputation and chairing that particular panel. So, members, we have to thank the panel for its work in undertaking a review, which we have done, but we'll do it formally. And then number two, we note that we can consider the recommendations, some of which we have today, together with the officer responses to the recommendations, which are set out in the appendix of the report. We're all happy? In which case we move to item 7, which is again another EDCL, Economic Development and Culture and Leisure Scrutiny Review, and this time management of empty PCC commercial properties to ensure maximum income generation. The response report is on pages 83 to 90 of your pack, and the purpose is to set out the response from officers, but also to hear from the chair. So, Russell, over to you.
Once again, the title takes about a quarter of my speech. So our second submission concerns management of empty PCC commercial properties to ensure maximum income generation. We felt this be brought to the attention of the Cabinet member due to being flagged twice high in the limited assurance over 2 years in gas. This mostly focused around rent reviews and compliance, but after witness statements and data provided, it highlighted other concerns which amount to a lot. and I emphasise on a lot of potential missed revenue. This data was shared with the Chief Internal Auditor. I would really recommend the Cabinet members to read this report if they haven't already, and we hope that an audit is included in the 25-26 audit plan. Once again, we'd like to thank all the witnesses that came in their free time and the scrutiny panel.
Councillor Simpson, thank you. Tom?
Thank you very much, Leader, and thank you, Russell, for chairing the panel. I suppose, by way of introduction, firstly, there are no updates since publication. I know you've covered on the previous report that in the STAR that we use, the recommendations are covered in Appendix 1. There are 2 recommendations that were brought forward by the panel. If I could just go through those briefly. The first is around marketing and advertising, and consider the creating and maintaining an easily searchable central list of PCC commercial properties that are available to let at any one time. The officer narrative in that appendix shows that that work is currently in train and is being implemented. If we flick through to the second recommendation, this covers the request for a clear process and hierarchy for dealing with customer complaints that is available to PCC through our heads of terms process. So this action has currently been implemented and is complete. The narrative is there in the appendix, but very briefly that covers providing a senior officer name as well as details of the corporate complaints procedure in any heads of terms that are agreed with third parties. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Members, any questions? Comment, Lee?
Well, thank you to Councillor Simpson and to the officers for their work on this, tightening things up. More income is always wanted, of course, so that we can spend on the things we've been talking about and that we all want in Hillsley, Copner, everywhere else. So when I sat on gas, I think it was about 18 months, 2 years ago, of course, we received the report which told us that Portsmouth, through all of its investments in that particular previous financial year, received £23 million in income from its investments. All of these things here, and the port and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Let's just stop for a minute and think what that represents. I mean, 23 million, if we say that every 500,000, I'm being conservative in this case, every £500,000 we want to raise on council tax is equal to 1% rise. So if you look at it that way, if my maths is right, this 23 million is equal to a rise on the council tax of about 400%. No, go on then, correct me. Correct me if you want to. But
Go on, Richard. It's 1% per million, roughly. But
1% per million. All right, 23.
It's still a very big number.
Yeah, 23. Well, in my day, 1% represented £500,000. Used to be 365,000, but so still a rise of 23%. And I'm going to mention it again. Local government reform, if it goes through, means all the efforts of Councillor Simpson and all of us here and the officers investing in our properties up and down the country to raise that £23 million, that £23 million will have to go towards paying down the debt or towards at least the running of councils in Gosport, Fareham and Havant, if that's the way it ends up. So what I'm saying for people to understand better is that the jam will be spread more thinly, or be scraping the bottom of the jam pot. I do that, I get every last bit out. But it's really important to talk about these things, because I'm kind of demob happy really, because I feel the way that this government is going, that that local government reorganisation is on the cards for them, because they just won't, well, they do U-turn on winter fuel, on the, which one have they U-turned on again? Winter fuel allowance. They've U-turned on that one. There's another one coming up soon, I'm quite sure. But we shall have to see how it goes. And we've got to persuade the MPs here Amanda Martin, majority of 750, Portsmouth people don't want this local government reform. They want the money that they have invested into the port and into the north of the city and all around the country. They want their money that they have invested, or we have invested on their behalf. They want it spent here on the things that they want to see delivered, like community wardens, which nowhere else does, like keeping library, and I will keep on about this. It's going to be a repeat record for the next 2 or 3 years until Amanda Martin and Stephen Morgan see the light. They have to. They have to come out on the side of Portsmouth people. So far, they have not. This 23 million is the icing on the cake that allows us to do all these things that we wax lyrical about. So those 2 MPs have really got to wake up and smell the coffee and get on the side of Portsmouth people. They're not there right now. They'll tell me off for saying that, they'll moan, but they're not on the side of Portsmouth and her people.
Members, any other comments or questions on this one? No, I agree with Lee, and I saw a post on the Portsmouth Labour Facebook post this morning, which made me think we obviously don't know much about this thing, because most of this isn't right. But it is what it is. Okay, so are we happy then to proceed to the recommendations, which is to thank the panel for its work in undertaking a review, and then to move to the second recommendation, which is notes and considers the recommendations together with the officer's responses to the recommendations, which is very wordy, whoever wrote this, which is set out in Appendix 1 to the report. Are we all happy? Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Russell. The next item is item 8, but Mike Stoneman isn't quite here yet. So he's alerted us to the fact that he might not be able to get here till 3. So I'm going to go on to item 9, if that's okay, which is the text scrutiny review, environmental and social behaviour. And Dave and Colette, is that you two? Okay, over to you then.
Thank you. So this report sets out the response of officers to the TEX scrutiny panel's recommendations arising from a review into environmental antisocial behaviour, which for the purposes of this included waste issues, littering, fly tipping and street cleansing, and also involved representatives from Vivid Homes, COLAS, the University, Highways England and Network Rail. Appendix 1 contains the recommendations and officers' responses, a number of which are already underway as part of BAU or existing projects. And the report recommends that the panel's thanked for their work and that the Cabinet notes and considers the recommendations contained in the scrutiny panel's report.
Thank you, Colette. Members, Lee?
Well, thank you very much. I think I went to nearly all of them, didn't I, Colette? And you did too, and all of us there. The first thing I've got to say, Leader, is this. On the first day, the committee agreed that parks and open spaces were maintained to a high standard. So after that, we got that one out of the way. After that, we had an enormous number of meetings about litter and fly tipping, I think. It seemed to me a lot of... I thought these things were supposed to be short and sharp. I thought it was going to be. But it went on and on and on and on. And I mean, I welcome always scrutiny of what we do. I think that's really important. It keeps us on our toes, and it keeps the officers on our toes. But what was great about this one is we had Councillor Garada, who described the streets of Portsmouth as horrific and horrendous. Now, I think she said that on the spur of the moment, and I don't think she could possibly have meant it, but the news picked up on it, and the next day we had a picture in the news of, I think it was a shopping trolley filled with fly tip stuff. And Councillor Candish went to a lot of these meetings too, and he pointed out what was really important was business as usual. Did that trolley get cleared away? And does all the rubbish get that's fly tipped, does that get picked up on as well quickly? And Colette was able to point out that fly tipping in this city is going down. Now, that might not be the perception of everybody. So they decided to go over and look at Labour-run Southampton. Oh my goodness. They all came back with stories that were horrific and horrendous. And Councillor Madgwick was really good. I mean, he was good chair, and he was very laid back. You know what he's like, very laid back and everything. And he allowed all the councillors to have their say. But he, as an independent councillor, agreed that compared to Southampton and standalone too, that Portsmouth streets were really quite clean and tidy. But the thing is with these things is you never see the wood for the trees. I think that's the honest truth. You know, when you go about and you see, and I went to look at Councillor Gerarda's road 4 or 5 times, and I couldn't find the litter that she was looking for up and down the road, which she said was there every day. I just didn't see it. But obviously, from time to time, you can take a photograph which looks pretty awful and then go across social media like wildfire, and then it becomes kind of like the norm for all of Portsmouth streets. It isn't like that. And it's not like that because we've got so many good people working on it, so many responsive people in COLAS, community wardens, volunteer groups on the beaches, over at Milton Common, and up at Hilsea Foreshore picking up rubbish and keeping our streets clean and tidy. So it was a good set of meetings, and I enjoyed them. And I enjoyed clashing with Charlotte in the nicest possible way. But the report comes back and it explains the facts as the committee saw them. So I welcome the report, and I also like to thank everybody who worked so hard, including all the bin men and all the people in COLAS who work so hard to keep our streets clean and tidy.
Thank you, Lee. I think you make an excellent point, actually, that the perception is, oh, there's litter on the street. What are the council doing about it? Well, actually, why are people putting litter on the street? Why are people fly tipping? They don't have to. There are methods available to them to dispose of it properly. It's not the council that throws rubbish on the street. So it's very easy for somebody to have thrown rubbish on the street and to take a picture of that rubbish on the street. But the really important thing that you reference is what happens to it. And we pick it up. And other councils are nowhere near as responsive as this council is if people report it. Now, if anyone's watching today at home, or they know anybody in their community where they know that they're perhaps up to no good and dropping litter where they shouldn't be, or fly tipping, do something about it. You can report it. Let us know. We cannot, as an organisation, have an army of people out on the streets wandering around with video cameras, filming every single person who's got a dog to make sure that if the dog goes to the toilet that somebody picks it up, and be on every street corner and every alley and at every park and open space making sure that people are not leaving rubbish. This community has a responsibility to its city. I believe that the people of Portsmouth generally are proud of being from this city. So it's your city, folks. You've got to look after it too. Yes, we'll go out there, we'll pick up the rubbish if it's littering and fly tipping, and we'll clear it because we don't want people to have to live in a place that is unattractive and messy. But it costs money to do that. So council taxpayers' money is being spent clearing up after other council taxpayers. And people accuse the council of wasting money, and one of the biggest wastes of money in this city is council taxpayers themselves wasting their own money by littering and then causing us to have to incur a cost in picking it up. We all need to be part of the solution. So I'm really, really hoping that with it being our centenary year as a city next year, that every single person in Portsmouth can be proud to be from Portsmouth, proud of the fact that our city is celebrating its centenary, and stop dropping litter. And actually, one of the things that annoys me the most is when people talk about deprivation. Because I tell you for nothing, when I walk around the streets of Portsea, it is one of the cleanest communities in this city, whereas you go into wealthy Southsea, where there is more affluence, it can be at times disgusting when people have dropped their waste everywhere. So it's not about deprivation on this occasion, it's about pride. And we know that the community in Portsea, God help you if you go down there and start dissing them, because they ain't going to have it. So it's about pride in communities, and if everyone can have the same level of community pride as the people in Portsea do, then we will have a better and cleaner city, and we'll be saving council taxpayers' money in clearing up after the mess that their fellow residents are leaving around the place. It's not acceptable ever, and it is a criminal offence. So please, 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 if the news is covering this or people are seeing it online, don't turn a blind eye to littering. There is the My Portsmouth app. Download it onto your phone, and if you see littering and waste, report it. We will come and clear it up. But if you know who's doing it, tell us, and we'll go and clear them up. Dave.
Follow that. No, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's about the responsiveness of getting things cleared up, and I think we are really, really good at that. And I think the panel learnt that through evidences that were shown there, and we've, how things we've done to improve the streets scene in Portsmouth. Back to the report, I think the recommendations are good ones, which is why we're already doing some of them anyway. And I think me and Councillor Hunt have got to discuss which one of us have got to write the letters to which people on there, because it's a mixture of community safety and environmental services. Yeah, and as you both point out, we all hate fly tipping and unclean streets and rubbish dumping on that. And the panel didn't just, as Councillor Hunt raised, the panel didn't just look at Portsmouth. They went up to Southampton to have a look to see, and and we fared very well against other places, because we're a living city. It's not going to be zero, but it's a lot better, and we're working on, I think the term constant improvement is what we're looking at, make it a lot better. And the chair, unfortunately, he's had to leave because he's not very well, but yeah, he said he'd been up and down the country and stayed in other areas as far up the north and Scotland, and he said Portsmouth is very good at keeping things clean, and our streets, the responsiveness at moving stuff. Obviously, Colette can tell me if I'm wrong or not, but in a briefing the other day, we said, since 2007, fly tipping's gone down something about 90% or something, wasn't it? Yeah, so, and in a news report based on the text panel, they have said that, fly tipping's dropped across the city. We now clear up about 10 tonnes of dump waste a month, which obviously sounds a lot, but that's down from 30 tonnes in 2010. So that's in 10 years, it's come down that much. Obviously, we like to promote our clean city and the fact that we're very good. If you're living in an area next to an alleyway or an alcove or something where someone does come along regularly and dump mattresses and sofas, you're not going to have that lived experiences. So we have to be empathetic to people that live near those spots, because that's not going to be their lived reality. But Portsmouth as a whole, and our responsiveness in getting these resolved, and the measures we've put in places where we can, we've put things like CCTV in there, or increased community wardens patrols there to see these things. In one area in Fratton, we've fenced an area off to stop people getting there. So we're always trying to constantly improve and prevent people doing it. But as you've said, Leader, and as Councillor Hunt said, there are already ways for people to get rid of things. It amazes me whenever I see a sofa and a bed, an old bed down an alleyway. It's like they must have used a vehicle to get there. The HWRC, the tip, it's free. You can book it same day. Why? Now, if you get caught, you're going to get fined for that. So, or you could take it to the tip for free. So I don't know the mindset of some of the people that do that. It is disgusting, and there's no reason for it. And that's one of the reasons we've clamped down on it by raising the fines. If you get caught on that, you'll get quite a hefty sum on that. So yeah, constant improvement. I think it's important to add a well done because to everyone that's been working on this, and I think as well as thanking the panel for its work, I'd like it minuted that we thank our council officers who've been working on it. I think we thank the community wardens, the bin crews, I think everyone who works on the highways there, the workers, the colas, the community litter pickers. We see quite a lot of them, and the public who do report things. I think it's all important because they've all helped keep Portsmouth clean and keeping it, getting better, keeping it in constant improvement.
Thanks, Dave. Anecdotally, we had a guy at the end of my road who, when I was still walking the dog, 3 mornings out of 5, I saw him chuck an empty Red Bull can out the window. So on the 3rd morning, I picked it back up and chucked it back in the window. He didn't do it again. Peter?
Chair, I was just going to, I'll keep this short, but it's very easy for us to get inwardly looking about this and perhaps celebrate what we think that we are doing. In my role as Cabinet Member for Transport, I receive a report which is independently done to very high levels of market research, which surveys 111 different local authorities. Portsmouth came ranked number 1 in 8 of those categories, and one of those categories was for the cleanliness of its streets. Now, that's nothing that we've done anything for. It is just something that was a throwaway content of a national piece of research. So we are never satisfied in how clean the streets are, but I think that is really concrete, independent evidence about how well we sit. The second thing, to be on a more personal note and to build on something that the Chair said, one of my frustrations is that when incidents do occur, and we live in a city, so let's be honest, there is always going to be some people who aren't going to be socially responsible and are going to drop litter. It's when people choose to report these things on Facebook, but never put it into something like the Portsmouth app. It cannot be taken care of on Facebook. It will be taken care of if it's reported in using the Portsmouth app or to the Clean and Tidy team. Just put a sensible search term into the council website and it will lead you to a solution. And that's how we can keep our number 1 rating for street cleanliness in the nation.
Very quickly.
Briefly.
Yeah, very quickly. Really important if people are watching. You need to understand, one example, I like using examples. Our CCTV is there. Not everyone knows exactly where it is because we move it about. It's mobile. We've got how many, 50 or 60 cameras nowadays?
Well, we've got 150 public space cameras and about 50 redeployables. 50 redeployable.
Now, one of those redeployable cameras was at a location. It caught a woman dumping stuff on a Friday afternoon. She got visited, was handed a £500 fixed penalty, and she paid it the following Monday. Now, the lesson is don't do it, as several people have said. It's not everybody that does it. It's some council taxpayers that do this, or some that don't pay council. But anyway, the point is, if you're caught, it's very, very expensive for dumping stuff. And there are cameras everywhere, and you won't always see them. And lastly, Leader, we're training more of our community wardens to a higher standard, even still, to issue these fixed penalties. So I think that we'll see the number of fixed penalties issued going up over the forthcoming year, and therefore, as night follows day, the number of fixed penalties issued is likely to increase. But I will say, local government reform can spoil this because community wardens are not a statutory service. Nowhere else around here has community wardens, not in the same way anyway. And if local government reform comes and we do have to only spend on those statutory services of education, children's services, adult care, and so on, and highways, these non-discretionary services which we are so proud of, and add to everything that we're talking about today, we wonder for their future. I hope not. I hope we can preserve them, but we will have to see what happens in the near future. And I hope that local government reform reorganisation gets the boot.
Briefly, Hugh.
30 seconds. I would like to thank the chairman of the scrutiny panel, and especially the assistant director who wrote this report for the clarity of this report. It is one of the clearest reports I have seen, and the recommendations are very clearly set out, and I certainly applaud recommendation 13.
Very good, 30 seconds, Hugh. Members, any other comments? I am going to push us a little bit because I know other people have got a meeting directly after this one, so I can't allow it to overrun. That would be unfair. No, we're all good. Okay, in which case, the recommendations for this one, which is the Tech Scrutiny Panel report, are that we thank the panel for its work, which she's already done, and that we note and consider the recommendations contained in the Scrutiny Panel's report. Are we all happy with that? Yeah. Okay, thank you. And now, you might be excited that you're next, Andrew, but you're not, because I'm going to loop back, if that's okay, to item 8 on the agenda this afternoon, because we've now been joined by education colleagues and children's social care colleagues. So, Sarah and Mike, if you could introduce yourselves first and then introduce the report. Thank you.
I'm Sarah Daly. I'm the Director of Children, Families and Education.
Yeah, Mike Stoneman, Deputy Director, Education. And I'm going to go through the report, if I may. Yeah, I'll be fairly brief. As you'll be aware, this is the response to the Education, Children and Young People's Scrutiny Panel regarding work experience opportunities within Portsmouth City Council. And the background to this, and it's set out in 3.2, is that we have a considerable number of young people and young adults who are struggling to access employment. And one of the ways to support them is through work experience opportunities. And when I say work experience, I can broaden that to include a number of other areas of work, such as apprenticeships, internships, taster days, etc. So there's a variety of opportunities that we can potentially offer children and young people in our city. Worth also noting those vulnerable groups, so I include in that our care experienced young people who are in the youth justice system, the children we care for, and the rising number of young people who are not in education, employment and training, NEET. And those figures, disappointingly, are going up. About 10 years ago, we got the figure to about 3 or 4%. We're now at 7%. There are a variety of factors around that, but clearly, the more we can do to provide work experience opportunities and give them that access into employment, the better. And we have an opportunity to do that within this council. That's not to say we're not doing things, and we've set out here there's lots of things we are doing, but there is a big opportunity here to do more. So the panel met on 4 occasions, and I'm very grateful to all the witnesses that came along to those panel meetings, and indeed to the directorates that all sent representatives to those panel meetings. And in section 4, the panel have set out their recommendations. What I've done is just set out some commentary in relation to each recommendation, because fortuitously, in terms of the recommendations that have been made, there is quite a lot of work that is already going on within the council, led by colleagues within education, so I'll just talk a bit about that as well. So if I just go through each recommendation, so we'll start with recommendation 1, which is around every directorate within the council is made aware of the variety of options of work experience and all the other opportunities that I've just mentioned. And to date, we've had really good engagement across the council with the majority of directorates to a greater or lesser extent, and we've just listed some of those there. A piece of work that we've been doing, and which is included in Appendix 1, is a directory of all the potential opportunities that can be available. And this is being produced by the Careers and Progression team, and if you're all happy with that, then we're keen to release that and to send that out to all directorates to support work experience opportunities within the council. The second recommendation was around all directorates nominating a lead contact for work experience, and to support those contacts in terms of how they can offer those opportunities, how they can support those young people, young adults, to access those opportunities. Subject to what members agree today, we are keen to to move ahead with that, to identify those lead contacts and provide that support in the autumn term. We've got the resources to do that. There are no financial implications, so keen to progress with that. The third recommendation was around all existing and new contractors and partners who work with the council are encouraged to offer work experience opportunities for young people and young adults. And again, we've got really strong relationships with employers, those that we contract with, those that we work with, and also supported by Shaping Portsmouth. We've listed again a few of those. I could mention others like PMC, Kier, you know, really strong relationships and some really great opportunities that they're offering. But again, I think we can do more. The fourth recommendation was about employing an additional part-time member of staff within the council to support our care experienced and vulnerable young people to find work experience both within the council and externally. You may be aware that we've taken on the Careers Hub across the Solent region, and we now have employed a Careers and Progression Advisor who is doing just this. And so that is in place and working with our care experienced young adults as well as others. So yeah, that's good to note that that is in place. The fifth recommendation was that those young people who have completed an apprenticeship at the council are supported to go out to our schools and colleges to talk about their experiences and encourage others to take up those opportunities to think about apprenticeships, internships, and the sort of opportunities that are out there. We could do more on this, but just to let you know that we had 5 young apprentices from the council who took part in the 2025 National Apprenticeships Week bus tour of our Portsmouth schools, our secondary schools. And we've been working with colleagues, Kate Brady in particular, to develop case studies to support that further via the Careers and Employability Hub. So, yeah, again, we could do more, but we are doing things around that. The next recommendation was around immersive days. And when I say immersive days, this is where we offer young people from our schools, whole classes, to come into the council and have a full day to look at a range of work that we do, to inspire them to take up some of those opportunities and potentially future employment. We have been doing that. We're looking to try and plan a full day in 25-26 to run that as a sort of a model day. So other directorates can learn from that and then roll those out over the course of next year and the year after that. So yeah, we're keen to do that. Those immersive days can be really influential for young people. And then the final recommendation that the panel put forward was around making sure that within each directorate we had a trained member of staff who can undertake those risk assessments for those young people who are working within the council on a work experience opportunity, an apprenticeship, whatever that may be. And health and safety have been looking at this and making sure that we do have those individuals to carry out those risk assessments. We do need to follow that up to see if that is in place. Health and safety has said that we've got that, but we'll do that follow-up in the autumn term to make sure that is covered across the whole of the council. So those were the recommendations. There are no sort of legal or financial implications from that, and as I said, there is already a strong body of work already addressing some of those, but clearly more can be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Members, questions or comments on this one? Yeah.
I mean, I know this is about in Portsmouth City Council, but to a certain extent, you know, I want to mention other work that goes on, like at Buckland Play Park, where our outreach team work there, and up at Stanshaw and Tip. Now, these are ones I know about, and they work with children all year round. They take them away on courses and so on. It's not quite employment, but it gives the kids something to do all across the summer. What they do is they raise money, they take kids out on field trips, and they add to their strength and their well-being. So it's not just about what we do within Portsmouth City Council. It's about what goes on in those other places too, like our community centres and play parks and youth clubs. I hope you don't mind me saying that. I just wanted to give them a little nudge, a little boost.
Just to add, actually, we've got a massive volunteering workforce out there, and a lot of our young people enjoy those opportunities, and of course that can lead then to employment opportunities. So yeah, that's all in the mix, and yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yes, less league tables and more well-developed young people is what I believe. I know that's not always popular in government circles, but it's something that I'm never going to deviate away from. I just wanted to give a shout out because Mike listed a whole bunch of companies, and I know through the social value work that Chris has been leading on within the council, we've unlocked a lot of opportunities with some of our key contractors and employers, and we're not. The council's not the only people doing this either. I know that from regular visits to Urbond that they down there have great relationships with several companies in the city who take in young people and offer them work experience, and particularly with young people from seldom heard communities, which is a really valuable piece of work that they do. So it is about a team Portsmouth approach and everybody working together, but it's important to highlight what we can do to do this better and do more of it. And it is difficult for young people to find work placements. You know, to ask a young person to go out there and find a work placement is quite a daunting thing to do. I don't quite remember it because it was a very long time ago for me, but I was talking to some young people at Urbon not all that long ago, and they said they just, you know, when you're told we'll help, but there's limited resources within the school and limited contacts, and it is about how we all work together to try and open up these opportunities and make sure that they're out there. But one of the ways that young people access work experience more easily is if they've got great soft skills, what I always call soft skills, or interpersonal skills, and they are confident and they can communicate well and speak up for themselves and represent themselves effectively. And they do that by some of the stuff that Councillor Hunt's been talking about. So it really is about the whole ecosystem working in support of young people and making sure no one's left behind and everybody has opportunity. And they do that through a whole range of different things, and many of which we've discussed today: accessing libraries, going on museum trips and other school visits, and generally expanding their horizons. And it's about that, giving them the ability to lift their aspirations and see what opportunities are out there for them. Other things such as getting people with real lived experience in good jobs to go into schools, and I don't mean astronauts and brain surgeons, I mean paramedics or teaching assistants or people who are delivering for their community every day, showing young people within schools that they could do this too. There are a plethora of jobs available in the health service for young people, and often, you know, you ask them to list the jobs and they'll say surgeon, doctor, nurse. They don't realise there's hundreds of other jobs out there as well. So it's about creating awareness, it's about connecting young people to those opportunities where they exist, but it's also about preparing young people at the earliest opportunity that when they are placed in that position of needing to find a work placement, that they're confident about doing it. So there's a lot to this, and this piece of work's concentrated on the sharp end of it, which is how do we create those work placements. But if we don't deliver all the other stuff as well, it'll never happen. So it is about understanding and reinforcing that. Members, anyone else?
I know we're short on time, but Sarah and I had a very pleasant evening at City of Portsmouth College a couple of weeks ago at the Supported Interns Awards, and what a really joyful evening. And right, probably I'm going to miss people out here, but ComServe and Mountjoy, I think, have been exceptional in terms of the social value work and opportunities that they've delivered. But it's a real, you're right, Leader, it's a Team Portsmouth event, this, and it's increasingly obvious that people are working together to deliver better opportunities for people across the city, and I look forward to working more closely around the employability aspects.
And also important to reference the fact that this is the Education Children's and Young Persons panel, and education is about lifelong learning. It's not just about young people in school. Jane's with us today and has just looked at me and smiled. And I was with Joe Duckett and Jane up in North End recently, as we had inspectors in, and able to champion the amazing work that they do with adults, because not everybody gets caught by the process and leaves school as a success, but that doesn't mean, an academic success at least, but that doesn't mean that we don't try and then capture them and give them those opportunities later in life. And that team is incredibly successful as well, and it's another important piece of the ecosystem. So it is how we serve all our communities throughout whole lives. Ideally, we can have all that success with young people, but when we don't, this council does put a lot of effort into making sure that we're there to offer those opportunities the second time around to adults too.
We've started something now. I also was talking about apprenticeships, actually, really important part of that ecosystem. And I was talking with one of our apprentices last week, Emma, who's doing a play therapy apprenticeship, which is an enormously valuable thing to be able to support children through mental health and emotional well-being support. And she's 45 years old and has realised that this is now her thing and this is her passion, and we've been able to support her through our apprenticeship programme. So there's some seriously impressive work going on around the city.
And just to wrap that up, I'll be attending an apprenticeship awards dinner on Friday, just to see some more success stories from people who, many of whom later in life have undertaken new training, but also some young people as well. Members, any other comments? So we are asked to thank the panel for their work, and which we do, and we note and consider recommendations contained in the Scrutiny Panel's report. Are we happy to do that? No further comments? Thank you, Mike and Sarah, for being here. We know you've had a challenge because you're being run ragged this afternoon, so hopefully you've dealt that reasonably promptly and you can get back to whatever it is you need to be doing. So thank you. So that now takes us to item 10, and Andrew, this time it is you, and it's a Look Up Art Festival 2025. Over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Pitt. Thank you, councillors. The purpose of the report is to update the Cabinet on the preparations for the 2025 Look Up Festival, and to agree the inclusion of various PCC assets which are identified in the attached appendices that we can offer as part of this part of the 2025 festival, which I'm struggling to say. Apologies. There is a slight amendment to the list of PCC assets in that we had a late request from the people who are managing the Lido project and the people who will be managing the Lido once it's finished to include the, it's called the Blue Lagoon, I believe, or was called the Blue Lagoon, a little cafe structure, just to repaint that on the back. So I'll just bring that came in after the pre-agenda meeting that we had, so it doesn't feature in here. There are a number of recommendations which are basically the same recommendation to all the different Cabinet members. I've done that deliberately because I wanted to illustrate that what started off as a relatively small thing actually around the Lido, that with support from James, of course, and from the members, it's grown bigger and bigger. So we've now got 2.2 to 2.5 illustrate the different portfolios that the work is now happening across, which is wonderful. And again, thank you on behalf of the Look Up Festival for your engagement with that process. It's really very valuable. As we've been discussing this at the pre-agenda, I just wanted to highlight some changes that we've been making in an iterative process across the two festivals that happened and the one that we're planning now, about how we engage with our communities. So when we started this in 2023, we the City Council, primarily were offering, and it was primarily including just walls that belong to us, mostly in James's portfolio, in fact exclusively in HMB's portfolio. So we focused our consultation around there, and it was successful, and the festival was successful, but we learned from that. I think actually we need to, we used to say hard to reach, that means we're not reaching hard enough, doesn't it? So we reached harder to find places where we could engage with people. So we went to Summersfest, had a huge response from Summersfest, really encouraging to me, and really thought-provoking. And we knocked on people's doors as well as just putting letters through people's letterboxes, which again worked really well. People enjoy the personal touch. So Nicola Clanahan's team, the community engagement team, absolutely brilliant. They've driven that, and they are really wonderful, super engaging, have a real heart for the city. So this time, again, at Nicola's team's suggestion, what we're going to do is be present in the places around our communities near these walls where people engage, so playgrounds, play areas, the places that our community engagement people understand where our community hang out and enjoy themselves, and approach people and say, this is what we plan to do, and have you got any thoughts or feelings about it? And of course, using the portfolio that we've already built up. The final thing that I wanted to say about consultation is that we've, via another route, and via Councillor Candice's portfolio, we've been looking at the bike shelters, or the bread bins as we call them, bike hangers, I think is the official title for them. Great opportunity to stop people tagging them inappropriately. But also we're really aware that in certain parts of the city, those quite large structures are right outside people's front rooms. So we're going to have a very targeted approach, and the colleagues in the transport team who manage those things, look after them, are going to help us with that, to speak to people directly and look at the whole street. And if people who've got these structures outside the houses are not happy, we don't do it. It's just to just to focus in a little bit more on that, there's a plan in the report which shows where these structures are located across. It's mostly across the kind of bottom half of the city. There's a few up in the north, and it's an ever-expanding portfolio that we would group together 3 or 4 of those which one artist could paint. So there's a sort of theme around the area. So I think that's it for me. If anybody has got any questions, I just really wanted to say that it's despite recommendation 2.6, this is a team effort. It's not just me. It's an HMB and it's across a council team effort, and I really value the support that we get across all of the directorates. So, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And yes, we know it's not just you, but it definitely is led by you. And you put a huge amount of your time and effort, which is not part of your day job, we should stress for anybody watching, into making this such a success. And that's not something that necessarily happens in other local authorities around the country, where there's a real partnership between the local authority and the people wanting to deliver a paint festival of the nature and size that Look Up has become. And some months ago, somebody sent me a link, and it was within. I looked at the link, and I could see within it was street art capital, and I thought, oh, okay, who's that then? So I clicked on it, and it was us. And I thought, oh, that's rather nice. So from small beginnings, we got to a point now where we are regularly engaging with communities across the city, and often those seldom heard voices in difficult to reach communities are engaging the most. And they are championing these artworks, and God forbid anybody lays a finger on any of them and tags them or does anything to them. And it is also an amazing programme of engagement with young people through workshops and what we would refer to perhaps as diversionary activity. But it's engaging with young people in a really positive way and showing them that actually their talents can be appreciated, and that there's a better way to use them than there is to go out scribbling tags on things, which is something that this definitely does not support. This is about supporting street art, and it does it in a really visionary way. And in September last year, during the festival, I had the great pleasure of escorting Arts Council South West Area Council members. I'm a member of the Area Council, and I was their effective tour guide for a couple of days as we carried out a visit of the city, and Angela from Articulate Sage was on the bus with us going around, and we were watching some of the murals being finished, and the team were absolutely blown away by the number and quality of them. And we've been really lucky to support and bring down some of the internationally recognised artists that we had. My personal favourite is the one by London Police on the side of Sea Dog Studios. I absolutely adore that one. And I don't like all of them. And I had a really interesting encounter with a lady from Lamport who was quite strident in her opinions, and quite right too. And she told me that she hated the one that wasn't near her. And on that basis, we should scrap the whole festival. And I said, so you don't like any of them then? She said, well, I like the one that's at so-and-so, and I like that one, but I just don't like that one that's near me. And I said, I had to point out, and that's the point. I don't like all of them either. Art is an entirely subjective thing, and you will like some, and you won't like others. But overall, it makes the city a much more interesting place. And there's been a whole range of businesses, private homeowners, as well as the council and other partners who've taken part in this project. And it's inspired other murals and projects in the city during the year as well, as we've seen recently up at Hilsey with the work that Spike Zephaniah has done up there, which is absolutely amazing. And if people haven't been up to see it, and the way that it signposts you through to the World War I Memorial Centre, then please take the opportunity to do so. It's right next to Hilsey Station, and it's fabulous. So long may this continue. Obviously, really importantly, we'll always listen to the views of residents in and around those areas where sites are being proposed and take their views on board. But as James often refers to, just to make him smile, it kind of started with the Pompey Pelican and it grew from there. So thank you very much, Andrew, for all you do in leading and bringing colleagues from across the council together to make sure that we do support this, and to everyone in every other directorate that buys into that ethos and gives you that backing, which is really important. So I'll go to Matt first.
Thank you, and thank you, Andrew, for the report, and thank you to everyone involved in the Look Up Festival. It's been a fantastic addition to the city and made such a difference to people's well-being. As Steve said, people go around the city, they look at their arts. Do not underestimate the difference that makes to people, and not just their pride in their city and their community, but also the way they feel about just going around, because having something nice to look at is good. I think that's a very interesting thing that that the leader said about going on to that thing about the City of Street Art, and it was, well, Portsmouth. Shows another thing we're leading. We had the stats earlier of the clean streets as well, which I think is a real contrast as well to what we heard from the Labour Party this morning on the aforementioned social media post, where they were talking the city down. It seems like the country, the Labour Party nationally in government decided to talk the economy down, and now it's the Labour Party politicians locally trying to talk this city down, and it does them no service at all, because as we found out with the economy, if you're talking the economy down, the place gets worse. I'm only really happy that the Labour Party aren't running things in this city, because otherwise we'd probably be losing investments, losing interest in our economy, and having people driven away. So I think this is something we should be really, really proud of. But I would also say, and this is where I'm going to do my echoing of what Councillor Hutton's been saying all the way through this. This is something we do because we invest in our city, and we can do it because we are a financially sustainable council, and means we can invest in these things. Under Labour's proposed local government reorganisation, all these things are at risk because they cost money. You have to pay money to do this. And if we are going into a new super authority that we do not want, it puts things like this at risk, because the things that I'm responsible for, and Councillor Dorrington's responsible for, and Councillor Candlish is responsible for, and a few others, and Councillor Ashmore is responsible for, the stuff we have to do, by statutory, that's all we'll be spending money on. And we won't be able to make our city better, show our city in a better light, and make it better for the people of the city by engaging with them. I love the fact that we're going to be doing work with school children in Buckland about what they're going to do for their area in terms of creating new bits and pieces. That is something we should be doing, but we can only do it because we can invest in it. So, as my message always is at these cabinet meetings, it's hands on Portsmouth. Leave us alone, leave us to be financially sustainable, and leave us to be able to invest in our city and make it better for everyone, which is all that we want on this council, in this administration. And it's things like this, Look Up Festival, it's a small thing. It might only feel like a small thing, but it makes a huge difference, and I'm really, really proud about this.
Thank you, Matthew. Dave.
I was going to say, yeah, this is one of the positive things that come up is the Look Up. It's always good to have something as positive as this to always look back on that. And one of the things that this report does is shows the extensive engagement and the lengths you go to hear that local communities' input in the art that goes near them. You were saying the drop-in sessions didn't work, so now it's going out into their events, into their communities. So it's even more extensive. It's involving, as we've all talked about, the young people. We've talked about the local artists and getting the local communities involved. And I'll tell you what, walking around the city and seeing these things certainly brightens my day up.
Well, we do like to brighten your day, Councillor Ashmore, so you're very welcome. Members, we've got a series of recommendations that Andrew has articulated individually because we're thanking different directorates, but because of time, I'm going to do a summary one. So if I look at you, just nod as we go through, and I'll try and be clever. And I've spoken to Darren and know we have his support. So we are going to agree that the Cabinet Member for Housing and Tackling Homelessness, the Cabinet Member for Transport, Peter's nodding, the Cabinet Member for Community Safety, Leisure and Sport, Lee's nodding, the Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education, Nick is nodding, and the Cabinet Member for Community Wellbeing, Health and Care, Matthew is sticking a thumb up. All approve the use of the consultation process established in 2023 for the inclusion of the walls in their portfolio, identified in the attached Appendix 1 for inclusion in the 2025 Look Up Portsmouth Festival. Also approved. And we also want to place on record our thanks to Andrew Malbon, as I've already done, but he is the principal architect, and for his coordination of the City Council's contribution to the festival and the festival organisers, partners and agencies that have supported the festival. Are those recommendations all approved? Yes. Andrew, thank you very much indeed. Number 11 is the Clean Air Zone. Bethan, I'm assuming that's you.
It is. Good afternoon. Right. So I am here today to give you an update on the Portsmouth Clean Air Zone. How much time do I actually have? Because I can give you a short version or an even shorter version.
Well, how long's the short version?
It's mainly a high-level summary.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, for the benefit of members who weren't at the Cabinet briefing and for any members of the public that are watching, I'm here today to provide an update on the Portsmouth Clean Air Zone. The purpose of this update is for information only. There are no decisions to be taken. It's a brief update on the performance of the Clean Air Zone, outlining recent work that the transport team have undertaken, and to inform Cabinet of the positions set out by central government in response to the work that we've been doing over the last year, and also to outline the next steps for the Clean Air Zone. So, as you'll be aware, we've had a Clean Air Zone, which has been a Class B charging Clean Air Zone, operational since November 2021. This was mandated through a central government ministerial direction in relation to the local authorities in England programme which was tackling persistent exceedances of nitrogen dioxide concentrations at the roadside. So we're not the only authority with a Clean Air Zone. We are the only authority with a Class B Clean Air Zone. So it's been operating since November 2021. Central government, through its Joint Air Quality Unit, set out its prescribed process for monitoring and evaluation of clean air zones towards the end of 2023. And at the same time, Portsmouth received its first formal assessment of our performance. Now, whilst this assessment was noted through media coverage, a formal report was not brought to Cabinet at that time because the Council was directed to undertake further work in line with central government's prescribed process. This work has now been undertaken, and that's what's in this report. So, just to cover off the State 1 assessment, which was the report, the first report we received on our performance. This was received some time ago now, so in November 2023, and at the time, it showed that we had 3 areas continuing to show exceedances of nitrogen dioxide, and 9 areas which were just below the legal threshold limit, which at the time strongly suggested that Portsmouth was not on track to achieve success. And success was bringing the Clean Air Zone within legal threshold limits within the shortest possible time. Following a rapid triage of available data towards the end of 2023, we worked collaboratively with central government to undertake further work, and they asked us to move to the next stage of their assessment process, which was to commission a targeted feasibility study. This was commissioned and the work was undertaken by external consultants, and it was conducted throughout last year, and it undertook significant data analysis and modelling work to understand the problem, make a case for any changes required, and identify further measures that could bring the CAS within legal limits within the shortest possible time. So in section 3.9 of the report, I've included the key findings from the targeted feasibility study. And in summary, the compliance level amongst vehicles charged by the existing CAS-B is high. Only a very small proportion of vehicles entering the CAS are chargeable. However, traffic in the CAS at the time was estimated to account for over 50% of NO2 concentrations, with the remainder coming from regional and local background sources. Diesel cars and LGVs account for the majority of NOx emissions, and this refers to all diesel, both non-compliant and compliant. It gets a little bit more complicated after that, and a lot of modelling work was undertaken to show the nature of the scale of emissions that would be needed to see us be legally compliant, and also factor in projections on fleet renewal, vehicle upgrades, national policy, and so on. It is possible that NO2 compliance might be achieved in these exceedance areas by the end of this year, with more certainty for 2026, once you factor in all the various changes that are happening locally and at a national level. I'd like to just pick up on one point, which is around the background sources of NO2, particularly maritime sources of air pollution, as these have attracted public attention previously. So there is a prevailing opinion that the port is responsible for some of the pollution levels in the clean air zone, which we've addressed. And we've interrogated NO2 monitoring data, which has been shared by Portsmouth International Port, as well as monitoring undertaken by PCC colleagues in regulatory services situated within the naval base. We conclude that the port has limited influence on citywide NO2 levels. The naval base is not a major contributor to the levels of NO2 recorded at the CAS exceedance sites. Furthermore, meteorological data demonstrates that the prevailing wind is a northwesterly, which actually moves pollution away from dockyard activities and away from the CAS. And I'd also like to just add that Portsmouth International Port itself is undertaking transformational work with regards to its net zero ambitions, and this has included a large programme of air quality monitoring in recent years. The work that was undertaken undertook modelling, a long listing, a short listing exercise with all the stakeholders we could think of internally, as well as some stakeholder consultation with external bodies too. Based on the art of the possible, what we could actually feasibly do over and above the clean air zone that's already in existence, and all the behavioural change measures and complementary measures that are being driven forward through other strategic programmes across the city, including BSIT, which is the Bus Strategic Improvement Programme, the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Programme, Future Transport Programme, Mobility, and so on and so forth. We concluded and suggested to the central government that there were very few options available to us to take further action to tackle NO2 pollution in the clean air zone itself. And on the basis of this, we proposed an approach in December of last year, which stated we did not feel that it was a reasonable or proportional response to change the CAS boundary or to change the vehicles we charge. We were working on the agreed principle that fleet renewal projections based on national emissions factor toolkit supported by DEFRA will reach compliance at the end of 2025 into 2026, and that any supplementary measures that we could use to facilitate fleet renewal would be through behavioural change interventions promoting mode shift, and that this would require additional funding from central government. We received a formal letter from central government in March of this year, and that's included in Appendix 3. They and their technical team had undertaken a thorough review of our targeted feasibility study and its supporting evidence, and they'd taken it through ministers for consideration. The letter recognises the commendable progress that Portsmouth has made and accepts our conclusion that no additional targeted measures will bring forward compliance any quicker. Central government has further stated that it does not support our proposal for a package of behaviour change measures and the corresponding request for additional funding. Upon assessment of this, the evidence presented does not demonstrate sufficient value for money. And considering these findings, central government have confirmed that it will not require Portsmouth to implement any additional measures to improve air quality at this time, and a revised ministerial direction will not be issued. So in terms of next steps, the Portsmouth Clean Air Zone continues to operate as it currently stands, and we're now moving into looking at the prescribed process for exiting the NO2 programme. What that does mean in real terms is that we need to demonstrate that that the Clean Air Zone has dipped below legal threshold limits, and hopefully we're seeing trends from some of the most recent data to suggest that is likely to happen. We have to demonstrate that that will be sustained for 2 years, and that we can sustain it in the absence of any clean air zone at all. And we continue to work on this, and will provide reports back to Cabinet as and when required. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth, and a really important issue, and important that we spent some time understanding that properly. But members, you are going to have to be brief. There are at least 3 Cabinet members who have a meeting that starts in 10 minutes. Lee.
I'll be very quick. I mean, for me, this vindicates the stance that we took all those years ago when our colleagues across the council and Green people outside said that we should do the CAZ citywide, we should penalise people in the city who drive their cars about, and the people who have been penalised the most would have been the poorest people, because they're the least able to move to compliant type vehicles. So this report, and thank you very much for it, I understand it very well, is a vindication of our stance. I thought that the story in the news about this was pretty dismal. You know, it was typically grey and typically not upbeat and typically, you know, bashing Portsmouth down again. Look, I understand, as the report says, any pollution is bad, really is bad. We don't want it, and we need to carry on doing the things that we're doing, including all the EV stuff, all the solar panels, all the work with the port, notwithstanding what the officers said. We need to keep on doing all these things, and so long as we're here, we will. But it does vindicate the fact that we did not have to penalise thousands and thousands of our residents through a CAZ whacking their cars. That's what the Labour Party, when they were sat there, argued for. They argued for all these people to have to comply with a CAZ, and they were the least able to afford to do it. So I'm really pleased with this report. As I say, I thought the the coverage of it was pretty dismal, but I do not underestimate the importance of having clean air. All of our children need and want that. We all want it. We will carry on working very hard indeed, because that's what we do. That's what we want. We want the cleanest air possible. Thank you very much indeed.
Members, any other comments? No?
Chair, I will keep it very quick. I thought it was a very positive and encouraging report. I would just like to celebrate the fact that we do have such ambitious, positive, and indeed wide-ranging reports. This report is titled about the Clean Air Zone, but actually the government commended our much wider approach, and that is the key to our success. We're encouraging, but not mandating, the electrification of transport. We've got 62 electric buses already. We've got modal shift going on. We're pushing people to want to go onto the buses, which is replacing cars. And honestly, I'm a bit disappointed that the government wasn't willing to come with us and back the behavioural changes which could really start to make a difference, and is not willing to fund the things that we know that could make this move towards cleaner air happen faster. So I'm very proud about what we have done, but we would like to be doing more, and I really hope we get the support to do that.
Yeah, I think Peter makes an excellent point, because it's not just about being compliant, because the UK's limits are not as low as they are in other places, and we recognise that this doesn't mean that nobody's going to be suffering from the ill effects of air pollution if we get compliant. We will have complied with what we were tasked to achieve. That's not the same as Portsmouth having the kind of air that we want everyone to be able to breathe. So the additional measures would have helped some more significant behavioural change that might have moved that bit quicker. But we're not going to, this is not about getting to compliance and stopping. This is about moving towards compliance in terms of the clean air zone, but continuing to use every method available to us through the work that Peter's doing with electric buses and scooters and e-bikes, and improving walking and cycling routes across the city and getting people onto public transport. Remember, the largest increase in bus users in any local authority in the country last year. That matters. So we have to keep push. But we were set a task by government, which was to get compliant, and we are well on track to do so. And they say in their letter that spending extra money on those resources would not have been value for money, especially given how close Portsmouth is to achieving success. Any other comments on this one? In which case we move to Note that the outline work undertaken through a targeted feasibility study and the outcomes of that. We note that we've been informed on the position set out by central government in response to the TFS, and we note the outline of the next steps for the clean air zone, and we thank you, Bethan, very much indeed. We have 3 items, colleagues, so whether or not I have to just not turn up for the next people is going to be on down to you. Item 12, Jane, UK Shared Prosperity Fund.
Steve's gonna.
Yeah, I'm going to present this item.
Steve,
Leader.
sorry.
I'm Steve Curtis, Funding Manager. I deliver the UK Shared Prosperity Fund with Jane Lemaire, Head of Economic Development and Skills. But Lisa Clark is with me today. He actually does the day-to-day delivery to make this work. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund is in we've just completed the 3rd year of it proper, which was the replacement for European funding and part of what was then called the Levelling Up Agenda. We are now in year 4, which is a smaller amount, an interim funding while we await news of devolved funding. So very much an interim period. This paper covers year 3. You'll see that this, although it sits in economy, transport and planning, the projects are not only cross-directorate but also involve external delivery partners. So it's not money we've held on to. It's money we've spread across the city. We allow to use 4% for administration, but we're proud that we do it cheaper than that, so we can use more of that money actually to benefit Portsmouth citizens. We've included, as well as the amounts of money spent, because that doesn't really give a picture, 2 case studies. And the reason we've picked these 2 case studies in section 5 is you'll see the power of match funding. We've been directed by the leader to, where possible, use this money to leverage in extra funding. So the Portsmouth Creates, it's helped a wider match funding into the city of over 700,000. It's created over 300 jobs, that project. So from a small amount of money, £60,000 of UK SPF, it has had a massive effect on the city. And similarly, the second case study, which is around match funding for business, we've approximately doubled the UK Shared Prosperity Fund investment by allowing businesses to use it as match, and that's created over 200 jobs and safeguarded a further 100. Any questions?
Thank you, Steve. I mean, obviously, colleagues, I'm quite close to this, and I actually see the value that it delivers on a very regular basis. I'm not going to share the who, but there is a process that particularly the applicants go through when they apply for business support match funding, and there was one business owner who needed to do something to complete the innovation of their business, or otherwise they were going to get stuck. I mean, I hadn't appreciated the magnitude of that, but I got a phone call after the letters had gone out, and I don't know who's going to get what in terms of when that's going to land, but I got a phone call one morning by somebody who was in tears because they got that small amount of funding, and it's match funding, they have to put in their own cash as well, to say that it literally saved their life because they'd been in a really difficult emotional situation because they got so close to moving the business forward and they were just stuck, and that got them over the line. So little tiny bits of money, these are not massive sums, 3,000-4,000 in those instances that they match themselves, but they make a huge difference. The small amounts of match funding that we put forward through Portsmouth Creates that they manage leverages in hundreds of thousands of pounds. Now, I was at an Arts Council meeting recently, and this is public domain because I've checked I can talk about it, but Portsmouth used to be in the doldrums in terms of bringing in project grants from the Arts Council. We used to really struggle. If somebody in the city and organisation got a project grant, it was, oh, they got a project grant. It was really exciting. We secured 20 project grants for the city in the last year. And if you look at the list of all the local authorities in the South West Area Council area, bearing in mind some of those are massive local authorities like Cornwall, which is a unitary county, we're actually now 4th amongst all those local authorities. When we started this match funding programme, partway through the Priority Place programme, because we weren't making the hits on that we wanted, we are 15th. So we've now gone all the way up to 4th, and of all the priority places in Arts Council South West, we are number 1. So that journey that we've been on, working in partnership with Portsmouth Creates, advocating for the sector, letters of support, which I write almost every day for people who are putting in funding bids, supporting them with developing their creative practice, is actually really helping to grow the creative industries, particularly in the city. And that's the bit that I see that I'm closest to. But I know that's just the tip of the iceberg. Things like Eat the Island, really successful, the business networking that we do, all the support, everything that you guys are managing, thank you very much, every single day, is making a massive difference. It's such a shame that the government chose to cut it this year. And the fact that they're tying it to devolution, so that one of the things that we're hoping for is to bring things closer to the city, but the government's going to actually potentially take this away and then take it back up to Westminster and then pass it back down to a mayor. And we don't have any say over that. But at least if we've got a mayor, it can get passed back down. If we don't have a mayor, it can't. I mean, this is the mad world we're living in right now. We've already got the money. We're making the impact. We are delivering for our businesses and our residents. And yet another flipping government is tinkering around with it all instead of just, well, leaving us to it. So it's incredibly frustrating at times, but it is what it is. And thank you for all the work that you all do to make sure that the money that we do get makes a massive impact. Any other comments? Okay, just me on that one then. In that case, thanks very much for bringing the report. Sorry we kept you here for so long, both of you. But it's hugely appreciated, and please keep doing what you're doing. 13, this one is you, Jane, I believe. Get Solent working.
This one is me. So Jane Lemaire, Head of Economic Development and Skills. The quickest run through the Get Solent Working Plan humanly possible. So the Get Britain Working white paper came out in November 24, and in April 25 we had the guidance notes for producing the local plan. We produced this as a functioning economic area, so this is the Isle of Wight, Portsmouth and Southampton working together, and we agreed to the first option, which was to publish for July 25. So the document will actually go live on our joint website, if not the end of this week, the beginning of next week, after some substantial work. The consultation across this process makes us look at regional labour, market information, population, employment, health. We're working very closely, particularly with the ICB as a compulsory partner and the DWP, but those partnerships were already in place and it's allowed us to maximise those. We've worked particularly closely across our own local authority with the different directorates and with the health and wellbeing boards in Portsmouth and across the area. The aim of this is to raise economic activity to 80%. Solent is 75.9. Hampshire out of interest is 81.4. But all of this masks a very different sort of position. Actually, Isle of Wight is 72.6. Portsmouth, surprisingly, is 80.4. So in theory, we're in a good position. And Southampton is 74.9% in terms of economic activity. But we know when we look at our unemployment figures that we sit higher than anyone else at 4.9%, with NEAT at 6.3. Sadly, that NEAT has gone up. I know Mike was in a meeting this morning saying that at 7%. And these really key issues, it's about addressing this. There is no more money coming to support the Get Britain Working plans. It is all about us working more effectively, ensuring that we are using all pathways to help our residents get into work and to make the most of the limited funding that is in the area to work more effectively. Our governance will go through the Solent Growth Partnership Board, which also includes going through our business board. So that's across those 3 local authorities again, to ensure that we have as much connectivity as possible. And we're going to continue to report both at the Health and Wellbeing Board for Portsmouth and the other areas, the ICB Board and the ICP, as they're both particularly enthusiastic to remain actively involved and ensure that this isn't just a very fast produced report that has active impact on the local area.
Thanks, Jane. Much appreciated. I do find it a bit frustrating that we're asked to do this, do it at pace, and by the way, there's no money. I mean, it's just an ongoing narrative that we keep getting at the moment. But as you say, the intentions of it are well placed. But we do need to make sure it is accompanied in future with funding, or otherwise it's going to be almost impossible to deliver, is it not?
Yeah, I should respond that we did receive funding to produce the plan, which was very welcome and allowed us to have significant officer time across the area. But there isn't additional funding as a result of identifying concerns. That's where we need to get those efficiencies and partnership working.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Members' comments? Matt?
Thank you, and thanks for the report. As the one of my additional roles is I'm the co-chair of the Integrated Care Partnership, and we have our assembly on Monday next week, where this work will be done, and the assembly involves loads of stakeholders from across Hampshire, Isle of Wight, so that will really help for the Solent plan and the Hampshire plan, which are separate, but we work together on those. And I'm really pleased that, as has been mentioned, there is no funding for the Gets Britain working, so the Get Solent working, Get Hampshire working, that we don't have funding to deliver it. But what we can do is make use of occasions like the assembly we've got next week, which is on workforce anyway, and was always going to be on workforce. And actually, we postponed it from when it was originally going to be because thinking about incorporating it in with this work, making sure that we're looking not just at our health and social care workforce, but also how it fits in with this, which of course is all about getting people who have are underserved and vulnerabilities, getting them into working. So I think this is another thing about partnership working though, and this is how you make it work. It's just frustrating that, as has been mentioned, the government doesn't invest in this kind of thing because properly gives us money to come up with a plan, but doesn't give us money to actually implement it. Because if they did, think how much more we could do, and think how much more money we could save about having people in work. And you save money on welfare, you save money on potentially people being unwell, etc., etc. So it's a really good plan, and I'm really pleased about the partnership working we've done inside this city and outside. But again, it's just a plea. Just give us some money to do something that's going to save money elsewhere.
Thank you, Matthew. Colleagues, anyone else? No? Okay. So it was to provide us with an overview of the Get Solent working plan, its alignment to the Get Britain working white paper and the proposed governance framework for implementation. I take it everyone's happy with that. Yes. Jane, thank you, and thank you for all of three of you actually for being here to the bitter end. Finally, last but by no means least, Claire Looney is not even delivering her own report but covering somebody else's. Number 14, the pilot VCSE, that's voluntary community sector and sustainability match funding.
Councillor Pitt, thank you very much. The Speediest to Speedy reports will explain that this is a paper seeking to approve a pilot match funding grant scheme for the VCS sector. It recognises that sector is still under particular stress linked to inflation, national insurance impacts, and the general rise of cost of living expenses, which are impacting the organisations, resulting in them having to use some of their core funding, which they're getting from external sources, to support them as an organisation, meaning that there are less funds available for them to support the communities in greatest need. This paper outlines two schemes. One is a pilot grant scheme, and they're both pilot schemes, sorry, I should say. One is a match funding scheme with working in partnership with the Hive in order to support organisations where they are already getting funding from elsewhere. The other part is a sustainability fund, because we are finding that some organisations are finding it very difficult when they put in, especially large-scale applications. They are running out of money to continue their existence, so to speak, whilst they are waiting for the outcomes of these applications. The full criteria and the funding remits and how it will operate are detailed in the appendices you've got before you, and I'm very happy to try and answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Claire, colleagues, you'll remember that this came out of several notices of motion, etc., that came to Council last year, and several appeals that we ourselves received directly from voluntary community sector organisations, where they were experiencing some of the difficulties that Claire's just outlined. I will remind you, of course, that the National Council for Voluntary Organisations itself stated that the changes made by the government to the employers' national insurance threshold and the increase in employers' national insurance contributions impacts the voluntary sector this financial year to the tune of £1.4 billion, and this government has done nothing to exempt the sector from the impact of those rising costs. It has not acknowledged that the VCSE, which delivers such a vast amount of value to our communities, needed to be treated separately when they brought in those arrangements. So that's one of the reasons why we're in this position, and the constraints on match funding and grant funding, which are the worst I've known since my involvement in this process, and that's at least 15 years. So we are not in a good place. This is not going to solve it, but this is our attempt to try and help with a relatively small amount of money, partnered with the Hive, who will work with organisations to try and make sure that if they're putting in bids, that they're as good as they can be. Matthew.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I mean, I completely back this, and this came from some long conversation about how we could best use money that we had available. We still that we had for a slightly different pot of funding, but going forwards, very much on the case of the impact, especially of the national insurance rise that was put onto employers, which there was no relief for the VCSE sector. I do talk as someone who works for the VCSE sector in my day job, but outside the city, so would not be eligible for this grant, so therefore no conflicts of interest there. But it is something that the organisation I work for works with lots of other charities, and all of them are struggling. And one of the really difficult things about it is when a charity sees something they would like to bid for, but then think we can't afford it, because we've had to pay out this extra money for the national insurance rise that employers got, and there was no relief for the VCSE. And so they go, well, we can't do it because we've had to pay out extra money there, which means we haven't got additional things, and we can't do a bid where we think in the past we could have done it because we have to also pay for the extra national insurance for any staff we employ, which is really debilitating. So then what do? You often, it's small local charities, and this is what we're really looking at here. It's our small local charities in Portsmouth who can really benefit for this match funding. If they can't do it, it's going to be bigger, more remote charities, often, which quite honest, especially the really big national charities, some of them are fantastic, but often they still effectively operate as if they're a private company when they're a contractor locally. They don't have a local connection. So this is our effort to really try and support those local charities just so they can make big bids for things and to get them to sustainability. This isn't something we're just going to give out and then just it'll do them over for a few months and then they're going to go out of business anyway. That's absolutely not what it is. This is all about sustainable funding, so they can bid for 3-4 year funding packages and we can really support them. So this is massively important. And again, this is something else that we're doing because we are Portsmouth on our own, because we are people. We have put this money aside and we can invest in this. This is discretionary spending. This is not core money at all. If we go into a shotgun marriage with places nearby and we have to bail out our bit of a structural deficit of at least, and it keeps changing what the at least is, because well, it's 140 million, it was 104, now it's 96, it'll probably be about 170 next week. But our proportion of that, we have to take on that. We won't be able to do things like this. And then where will that leave our local charities as well? In an even worse position. So this government is pinching local government, it's pinching charities, and we are being screwed. So once again, and my final parting thing is, I will say one last phrase, my last 3 words, hands off Portsmouth.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else? No. We've got recommendations before us. But just before we move to those, I just want to acknowledge that the Hive is actually putting in that bridge funding. So we're putting in the match funding for the grant applications, but the Hive, using money that they've got for supporting the VCSE, they are putting in the match funding amount, which will, not match funding amount, the bridging amount, which will hopefully help at least some organisations to survive while they're trying to replace their existing funding, not helped by some of the changes the government made. Anyway, recommendations: number 1, that we approve the match funding scheme. Is that approved? It is. And number 2, approve that the Hive, and thank the Hive for offering to work in partnership with the council as administrator of this scheme. And if we could amend the recommendation to the words that I've just used, Anna. You'll better watch them back on the transcript. It's very brief. Yep, so approved. So thank you very much. We note that Councillor Dorrington had to leave a few minutes early just to make another meeting, and thanks to all the officers who've been here today for what's actually been quite a long meeting. Thank you very much.